Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. I am your host, Noed. And in this episode, let's talk about Seasons of Rest, Part 1. Okay, so before we go into the subject matter, let's talk about or let's acknowledge where I'm at. I am in the woods. Some people call it the forest. I'm in the woods, which for me is a place where I'd love to come here when I need to restore my mind, when I need like that reset, especially if I find myself anxious, if I find myself overthinking, if I find myself sad even, it's a place where I refuel and get recharged. It's even my favorite place to pray. Like of course we could pray at home, we could pray in the car, but there's something about praying in the woods for me, being able to pray out loud as I'm talking and navigating, through the trails and things like that, that it hits very differently, especially if said woods are in the mountains, which I'm not at, but this will suffice for now. I do love perusing through nature, period. I love walks on the beach, uh, going to the lake, canoeing, kayaking, all that stuff. When it comes to nature, it's just a way to decompress and again just find that those moments of rest. So I found it rather apropos, rather fitting that since I'm going to be talking about rest, I'm like, why not the woods? Might as well. And the reason why I want to talk about rest is because I am just now getting out of a season of rest. It was a very short period of time that I had to just pause and rest. And we're going to talk about what that looked like for me. And it wasn't all cute and pretty. There were a lot of challenges that I found in that season of rest, but there were also really good lessons and really good reminders in said season that I figured let me share with the people. I'm sure that a lot of us could use the rest, especially when we're living in times when we're all constantly exhausted, we're all feeling run down. So I just found it fitting that we ought to talk about this. With that said, I don't want to do like a really lengthy episode, so I'm like, let me do part one and part two. Part one, I think I'm going to let's go ahead and call it the call to rest. We'll call it just that. And I've even taken some notes because as I was going through that season of rest, I was jotting down lessons or things that I've observed or things that I was experiencing, because I'm sure that this will not be the only season of rest that I'm going to encounter or navigate through. Okay, but let's do this. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is how I got into the season of rest. I was going through a transitionary period, it still kind of am, where I had to transition out of certain things and transition into the new. And I found myself, forcing myself to like, okay, we're wrapping up the old season. We're now moving to the new thing. What's next, because that is just naturally what I do in general. Like even when I'm processing grief or I'm processing disappointments, I'm more like, all right, let's forgive, let's forget, got it. I process my emotion, let's move on to the next thing, bam, instead of just sitting with what just happened for a minute before moving on to the next thing. I just tend to want to move to the next thing and not have I just never want to be held back because of emotions, essentially. I don't ever want to self sabotage and like be stuck in a rut because I couldn't process something as quickly as I deem it appropriate. But Lord knows what is an appropriate time for processing. But with that said, I do want to talk about the need to rest. we are living in a culture, at least here in the United States, and this we have a Western culture that teaches us and essentially glorifies the hustle. The way even our economy, and I can't speak for other parts of the world, but the way our economy and our culture is set up, sometimes we don't have any other option but to hustle away. Wake up and it's go, 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 go. You're going throughout the day, you're getting out of work, and you're tending to kids, you're tending to households, you're having to do all of these things because that is sometimes what life demands, right? And if you don't tend to one aspect, like if you don't tend to one side or one aspect of your life, it can collapse and it can crumble and it can be really bad. So I, as a parent that happens to be single with no co-parent, I absolutely get this, because it's like you got to be, you know you got to be like the CEO, CFO, project manager. You got to be all of those things in your home. You're responsible for it all, and tag your it for all the categories, while also trying to be an adult and have a personal life, and trying in the midst of that trying to also still pursue dreams and goals that you may have with yourself. For me personally, I have dreams and goals and that I want to be able to achieve and provide a better quality of life for my children, and I don't ever want my responsibilities and my 9 to 5 to ever get in the way of that. So in a way, culture, the way life is set up, you kind of have to hustle away from the moment and grind away from the moment that you wake up to you go to bed. And sometimes it just feels like there aren't enough hours in the day. Okay. And we see it on social media all the time. The hustle is glorified. We hear a lot of content. At least I do. I come across a lot of content of you got to hustle, hustle, hustle. There's a couple of parody ones where they'll say things like, you got to have 3 LLCs registered before 4 a.m. And there's always some kind of course on how to make, a 6-figure income. And typically those will require a lot of hustling, and not that hard work isn't required. I think hard work is absolutely necessary, but there's a balance, there's a time, and there is a place. Unfortunately, the hustle culture it's not just limited to the marketplace, it's not just limited to corporations, it's not just limited to entrepreneurship. I think the hustle culture is also glorified in the church. Coming from a PK, having grown as a PK, and having been a ministry leader myself, having been a church leader, I think that, at least it has been my experience, that there's a lot of expectations and demands, especially when it comes to the events that you got to show up. You got to show up for this event. You got to show up for this prayer meeting. You got to show up for this service. You have to show up for this meeting. And it's always something on the calendar. So on top of you having to hustle and grind away in your 9 to 5 and tending to family, now you're finding yourself having to do all of these things in the realm of ministry, and days like on a Sunday where maybe you're serving, or any other day, um, that takes that takes a long, it's consuming your hours, and there we are. Before you know it, you are needing a moment of rest. But I think at least in my opinion, the culture in the church and outside the church, just the culture altogether, tends to glorify um, tends to glorify the hustle and the grind. And typically, especially churchy folks, like, love to say things such as, "You gotta rest in the Lord." Well, what does that look like? And that is kind of where I found myself in this season, learning what that looked like for me. Okay. Now, personal backdrop, as to what led me into a season of rest. Like I said, I grew up as a PK. I saw my parents, really, until this day, they work really hard. Always busy, they're visiting people or just grinding away. Seeing my father do figure out a way to provide for the family, and having just always constantly go go go, tending to a house and things like that. I first generation immigrant, and that is just ingrained in us as a Latina, as a Hispanic person, is you work really really hard. um that's just a part of it. I'm also an older sibling. That's in my DNA. That comes with the introductory packet. Okay, introductory package of being an older sibling. You just gotta like keep it together and make it happen. And as I mentioned, as a parent that is that's raising two kids by herself with no co-parent and just trying to balance it all, led and also I realized that to a degree I did do this to myself. I did it to myself. I've spent the last 4 years grinding away in ministry work, in and out of the church. A lot of it was a way to cope, right? Post divorce, post for those of you who don't know, we have a history with domestic violence and domestic violence survivors. So trying to heal from that, trying to find a new sense of normalcy, trying to grieve the loss of a marriage. I just threw myself into work and ministry. And I'm also a person, I'm not going to say that I'm a perfectionist, but I can be. So whatever I do, I try to do it with excellence. Excellence is actually one of my personal core values. I believe that if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. And if your best is not good, don't focus that, then fix it. You got to level up. And um so any little task, any little work, I'm not going to give you basic. We're going to level it up, right? Because I feel if we can, especially ministry, if we can offer our best and a level of excellence in business and at work, why not for the Lord? But just in general, just a personal core value is excellence. So when I stepped into ministry or any ministry assignment or serving in an area of ministry, and I think I think those that have seen me worked and have co-labored right alongside with me can attest to, oh yeah, that's me. I've actually had somebody ask me like, why do you try to be such a perfectionist? They just don't get it, but that's just me. I like to be able to know that I gave it literally my best, and level up while I'm at it, to just give it my best. But doing that consistently and continually led to me feeling burnout. I'm not new to burnout, but it led to some burnout. And I began to feel it earlier this year. It began to manifest itself in physical symptoms. I do suffer from androgenetic alopecia. I do have androgenetic alopecia, so my hair will fall when I experience stress. But I noticed that I started to lose hair again. And I noticed that I could walk a few steps and I found myself fatigued. I felt that I could go from my office to the kitchen and I would be so exhausted. I was continually exhausted, exhausted, exhausted. And I'm just like, this is part of the norm, right? This is part of the grind. You're going to feel exhaustion. I began to feel some heart palpitations, like the heart palpitations. I could feel my heartbeat intensely. And I just touched the mic, but I just began to not not feel so good. Um, Probably worse than the usual. And I did have a moment where my chest began to hurt. I began to experience angina. And there is in my family there's a history of heart issues. So I got a little scared one evening. My chest was hurting so bad. I felt like I was having a heart attack to the point, which, mind you, typically heart attacks do manifest in women completely differently than men. But knowing that there was fatigue involved to the level that that was involved, I knew that that was one of the signs. And add to that the chest pains. I took myself one evening to the hospital because I just kept thinking, listen, I'm the only parent my kids have. I need to be well, at least for them. If it's not for me, at least for them. So I took myself to the hospital, and because I was experiencing chest pains, they took that very, very seriously. And also based on the family history around that time, my dad was also having some open heart surgery. So it was a scary little drive, but I remained cool and calm. And I'm so glad that the doctor that I got, she's a DO, which is different than an MD. And I love DOs because DOs will get to the bottom of the issue. MDs tend, like, typically their philosophy, and I could be misquoting this, but MDs philosophies tend to be more about let's tackle the symptom. A DO will typically go deep into, like, let's figure out what is going on, let's get to the root of the problem, and let's in the most holistic way possible, let's treat what's going on. I was in the hospital for many, many hours, but getting all kinds of blood work and tests done, and you name it, uh, getting an echo done, getting all the things done. And lo and behold, I was told that I have hypothyroidism. And the doctor said, listen, your metabolism is shot. Um, it essentially slowed down. It forced your body, it's shutting down. Okay. Your cortisol levels are really high. That's the stress hormone. So you're stressing whatever you're doing, ma'am. You're living a life of stress. And here we go with the airplane. It got really, really loud for a second there, so I had to stop. But yeah, so my cortisol levels were really high. And the doctor explained that that meant that I was living a life full of stress. That with the cortisol levels being really high, it caused my T cells, certain T cells, which these are hormone levels, to increase, thereby causing my metabolism to slow down to the point where now my heart was working really, really hard um, at reviving that metabolism. So stress caused my metabolism to slow down to now cause my heart to work extra hard, hence why I was experiencing angina and chest pains. So she's like, you're gonna have to. Usually, it is so cute when they try to tell you, you got to reduce your stress. You may have to go see an endocrinologist. Got to get your hormones checked. You may have to be put on meds, et cetera, et cetera. And which I didn't. Because I had a conversation with some people that are known to me that I know experience hypothyroidism, and just listening to their experience, I'm like, I think I want to go a more holistic route. And before I go into, a doctor to get anything prescribed, I would like to handle this as best as I can and do a little bit of research and so forth. And I did have to buy certain supplements to aid, right, with the hypothyroidism, and they help here and there. It's not perfect, but I definitely had to learn how to manage stress. So that that situation with me landing in the hospital, it was scary. It brought to my attention, like, maybe you should slow down. Maybe you should slow down. And trying to figure out how in the world do I do that with the way that my life is structured, what has to go, how, like, I'm here trying to figure it out, and I couldn't find a way to figure it out. But I had to make a determination to start saying no to a lot of extra events. So if there's an extra event, maybe extra invites from people, even to things like, hey, you want to go grab some lunch? I had to start saying no more often. I had to stop saying no to mentoring and stop like, or start saying no, better yet, to things like mentoring or extra lunches that just really didn't fit in my schedule. And it pained me because I want to make people happy. I love to give people my attention, to be able to to be able to sit and converse with people like that. To me, having one-on-one intimate conversations, it's something that I absolutely love to do. I'm a whole introvert, but when it's a one-on-one, it's, to me, it fills my cup, and I know it fills their cup, especially if I can listen to them and allow the person to really talk it out and share wisdom. But I had to start saying no. And also, I really had to think about the fact, like, hey girl, you want to be married one day. This, the way your life is going, that's not conducive of being in a relationship or even dating or even married. You have to start, if this is what you really want, you have to start setting up your life now for the life that you want, the life that you want. So it took me a minute. I took the summer as as a moment of, like, some of my ministry work ceased over the course of the summer, which was perfect. I'm like, okay, I don't have to go to this. We're not having this today. We're not having meeting to do some prep work for this. And so little by little, it started to slow down. And God really began to work in me. And I knew that I also had to let go of certain ministry endeavors, like just flat out say, it's a wrap here. As much as I may have been enjoying it, or as successful as it may have been, or as much as it may have been blessing people, I had to walk in obedience and walk away from it. And the Lord had to reveal certain things to me that really um pushed me to say, okay, it's a wrap. Um and you would think, okay, great. Like, you walked away from certain things, you started to say no to a lot. But then I found myself like, what am I doing with this time? And it felt weird. It almost felt wrong to rest. It almost felt wrong to be able to be able to clock out from work and just be, and not have somewhere to run to, um, somewhere to go to, something I had to show up to, a meeting that I had to go and have. It felt really weird, in a wrong way. I'm like, well, I don't want to be lazy. It just felt really weird. So I wrestled with that. And it was absolutely necessary as part of that season as well. I was transitioning from one church to another. Just felt like I was being led to that. That's what my family and I had to do in that season. And having that happen during that season of rest allowed me to process that change, because it was more emotional than I anticipated. It allowed me to sit with my emotions. It allowed me to process a lot. It allowed me to process and figure out some things. It gave me time to also connect with the people that I needed to connect with in that season. Even more time with my kids. It was also a season where my daughter got her first job. So now mom was available to be able to take her and pick her up from work. Something that otherwise I would not have been able to do. And it's important for me to show up. Um, but it was not easy. Like, you just it takes a moment. So if you are entering a season of rest, or if you're taking a day to rest and it feels weird and you don't know what to do while you rest, you're like, should I nap? Should I not nap? If I play video games, what do I do? Do I go on vacation? Do I go? It's just really hard to figure out. But the point is to just be patient. And if you feel like you are in a season, you're being called to a season of rest, do it. Take what I like to call a sabbatical. to step away. Hey, I'm taking a month or two off from X, Y, and Z. And I know we still have responsibilities. I mean, in my season of rest, I still had responsibilities. I still had work. I still had house things to do. Life didn't stop because of it, but I was able to rest in other areas that I needed to rest. And to close out this episode, because it's already getting pretty lengthy, I do want to say that yes, it is biblically sound to work hard, but I believe also the word talks about resting. There is biblical foundation for that. For starters, we have Ecclesiastes 3 that says that there's a season for everything. There's a season to be happy, there's a season to grieve, there's a season to plant, there's a season to uproot. Like there's a season to harvest, there's a season to build, and a season to uproot. There's a season for everything, and there is a season for rest. It's not always grinding away. It's okay to just stop, rest, and stop and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Enjoy and just take in where you're at. Also, we have, I call it the Sabbath principle. The Sabbath is for us, y'all. It is not just a Jewish thing. God literally implemented rest for us. It is biblical, even allowing the land to rest. It was the year of the Sabbath where the Jews were told, hey, let the land rest. Let the land rest. Um, and if God allows for land to rest, he makes concessions for land to rest. How much more do you think, you know, how much more important do you think it is for you to stop and rest? It's very important. And then I also think about Elijah, 1 King chapter 19. I mean, this dude had just killed prophets of Baal, hardcore, have been going through seasons of drought and speaking up against King Ahab and Jezebel, and just a really hardcore dude. And after that, in chapter 19, he goes into the wilderness and he was weary to the point of depression, and he didn't want to live no more. He was weary, he was tired. And what did he do? He slept underneath a tree, and an angel came and made him bread and gave him water and told him, hey, rest up. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to handle the journey that's up ahead. Rest up. And that was the biblical passage for me that the Lord kept bringing up over and over. And it just let me know, like, hey, girl, rest up. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to handle the season that's coming up ahead. I don't know what the new season's going to bring. I just know that I'm finalizing my transition. Feel like I'm at the tail end of it, and that it's time to work on new things, new projects, new endeavors. Um, it was necessary. But had I not stopped and taken a moment to process and taken a moment to rest, I don't think that I would have been able I don't think I'll be able to handle what's up ahead. And even now, as I'm transitioning out of the season of rest, I still now have to be very careful. I Even last week, I started kind of going back into the grind, and my body, I felt the chest palpitations again. My chest started to hurt again, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, so it caused me to pause and think, okay. So that means that whatever I'm stepping into, I can't fall back into old habits. That may mean that I need to, and I'm still trying to figure it out. That may mean that I need to take a moment, maybe set a boundary of, hey, I'm not doing work on Saturday, or I'm not doing any work on Sunday. Sunday is time for, people that I love, people that I care for, that are closest to me. And that's it. Maybe it's a time to lounge on the couch, whatever it may be, take a walk in the woods. But it is not a time to work on any projects, to work on any client work. It is a time you just really having to set those boundaries. And yeah, re-entering or exiting a season of rest is something that I'm still trying to figure out as we speak. Like I said, But I think the message is clear: is we're not going back to doing what you were doing, which it really made me feel really run down, and it led me to yeah, to sit down somewhere. But that's that. I'll leave it. I'll leave this episode one the way it is. But yeah, I hope that y'all were blessed. And like I said, and listen, if it's not applicable to you now, okay, save it for later. We all feel run down at one point. Seasons, they ebb and flow, they come and go. There's a time for everything. If right now you're in your season where you're killing it and you feel great, continue living. It's bound to circle back. You may need this video for that time. But thanks again for watching. Till next time.